You mentioned abortion. I'm sure that'll be part of your next answer, but what do you find the biggest issues are facing Washington State? And what would your main priorities be as governor? And related to that, you're willing to push back against your own party. Do you find that any of your viewpoints differ at all from the mainstream Democratic Party?
Oh, I guess what I would say is, I think that actions sort of speak louder than words. When I first ran for office, Kat, about 20 years ago, I ran against an incumbent Democrat for a local county office. I'm in Seattle right now, and so in King County, I ran against an incumbent Democrat who was chair of the county council, who'd been there for 20 years. That's not the easy way in to run as a known nobody Democrat against an incumbent popular Democrat. I took that incumbent Democrat on and won. And so, I've been willing to go against my party where I think it's the right thing, either politically or filing lawsuits or whatever I think is where my principles lead me. And so I think that's important for voters to know. In terms of the race, the good news in this race is there will be a clear contrast between me and Dave Reichert. Dave Reichert's a former congressman, a Republican who will almost assuredly be the Republican nominee. And you mentioned choice. He is anti-choice. Our Seattle Times newspaper here refers to him as an anti-choice stalwart. I mean, that's just where he is. And that is not where the overwhelming majority of Washingtonians are. And again, in a post-Dobbs world where reproductive freedom is being taken away state by state by state, the last thing we need in Washington state is to elect a governor who is anti-choice, wants to take away your freedoms. Number two, to mention Donald Trump again, Dave Reichert's last 2 years in Congress happened to be Donald Trump's first 2 years as president. The good news is there are independent groups that evaluate your voting record when you're in Congress. And more than one of those groups has pointed out that Dave Reichert voted with Donald Trump more than 92% of the time. Just put that in some perspective, that's voting with Donald Trump more often than Mitch McConnell, more often than Ted Cruz, more often than Matthew Gates. And so that's a level of extremism that I just, it's going to be my job to make sure that Washingtonians understand that when Donald Trump was president, Dave Reichert lacked the political courage to stand up to him, and in fact, voted with him time after time after time. In contrast, I was the first attorney general to take on Donald Trump and beat him in court many, many times, again, to stand up for the rights of all Washingtonians. So that's a contrast that we'll be emphasizing to the voters as well.